Though the contents of this program provide information taught by certified firearm training instructors on how to properly carry and discharge firearms, do not attempt this at home. All gun handlers should seek personalized training programs in their area to properly learn how to safely carry and operate firearms. Contact your local law enforcement or NRA agency to find certified training instructors in your area.
He was quite a jealous person. I began to have a problem with him wanting to constrict my friendships with other people. I'm here to take a proactive stance in my life.
Welcome to Conceal and Carry School. We're on the range at Tac Pro, and Lynn Forcell is beginning to master her shot.
2 rounds, up, up.
But how will she compete when matched against the other students?
I think I have quite a bit of anxiety about handling the gun.
Will her age play a factor?
I was frustrated and I felt very weak.
Today we'll explore what steps seniors can take for personal defense. And then, a stalker has hunted Lynn Forcell for the past 18 months.
I imagine it would take the sheriff at least 10 minutes to get to my property.
The question is, can Bill train her? We'll find out.
Conceal and Carry School is brought to you by Ruger, rugged, reliable firearms. Conceal and Carry School is brought to you by Insight Technology, built for battle, and by Blackhawk, honor as a way of life.
Welcome. For the past 9 weeks, we've been following 9 students from 5 states as they endure an intensive self-defense training course taught by former Royal Marine and Special Forces weapons instructor Bill Davison. Today, we'll meet our eldest student, Lynn Forcell. Lynn's story may not be a familiar one for many of our younger viewers, nor will some of you be able to connect with her upbringing. Lynn finds that in her golden years, she must make a decision to change with the times in order to protect herself. The question is, does she possess the ability to make the change? We'll find out. Senior citizens are our connection to the past and guides for the future.
My name is Lynn Forcell. I've lived in Vacaville since I was 10 years old. My mother was an elementary school teacher and my father was a principal.
I grew up in the 60s and we raised women differently.
Coming from what some might consider a bygone era, we were raised to be polite and trusting, to turn the other cheek and help thy neighbor.
There are many women who are taught specifically to wait for somebody to help them when they have a problem situation. Society has changed tremendously in the last 20 years, and I think that boundaries are blurred more so than in previous generations.
In America, when you consider senior citizens make up 12% of the population but rank the highest in criminal victimization, it's difficult to face the hard facts that define our society.
I have a restraining order against a handyman who worked for me during the past year.
Every day, acts are committed against the elderly, and often no justice can be found.
It's absolutely more important for somebody who is out in the countryside to be more prepared. If I needed to call the sheriff, I imagine it would take the sheriff at least 10 minutes to get to my property.
Are criminals targeting the elderly due to a perceived weakness? Or are there other motivating factors behind criminal attacks against seniors?
I think it's more of a violent world now because our population has increased dramatically.
And is there anything that seniors or the rest of the population can do to stop them?
If the handyman was violating the restraining order, I would either need to run into the house or have something to protect myself. And what I have at this point is pepper spray.
Concerned for her life and the safety of her animals, Lynn decided she needed to overcome her upbringing. It was time to learn how to use a gun to defend herself.
I'm here to take a proactive stance in my life.
All of you've got to decide now that at some point, if your life is threatened, that you would defend it.
I feel that if you're in imminent danger and you need to shoot to save your life, if you can do that, it's the thing to do. I'm not sure that I can do that. I have to overcome to learn some of these new things that are ordinary experiences for younger women.
Up next,
I think I was quite naive in my approach with this handyman.
He didn't seem quite right when you were around him. He seemed upset.
According to the U.S. Department of Justice Law Enforcement Assistance Administration, 74% of felons polled agreed that one reason burglars avoid houses when people are home is that they fear being shot during the crime. Welcome back. 18 months ago, Lynn Forsell hired a mechanic to repair her lawn tractor. Recommended by a friend, Lynn was unfamiliar with the man, but was hopeful he could fix the machine before the spring grasses grew out of control on her 5-acre ranch. After several weeks had passed, Lynn began to worry that the man wasn't going to be able to fix her tractor.
I began to have a little bit of a problem with him wanting to be at my house every day and to constrict my friendships with other people.
With each passing day, the man appeared less interested in fixing the machine and more interested in watching Lynn.
One thing George did mention to me in the course of working for me was that he was arrested about 25 years ago for harassing a woman in a rural setting, probably a similar scenario.
He didn't seem quite right when you were around him.
Raised to believe she could always avoid a conflict, Lynn asked her ranch hand to let the mechanic know he was no longer needed to complete the task.
I think I was quite naive in my approach with this handyman because I really felt like I'm settled in my life, and I didn't think anybody would be interested in perpetuating something like this on me.
The man left without any conflict and only asked if he could return to get his tools.
Before I knew it, he was out at my place every day and became quite possessive and jealous.
He would kind of poke his head around the corner and spy on us.
I decided it was time for me to tell George to move on.
After several weeks had passed and the mechanic was still stopping by Lynn's ranch to pick up his few remaining tools, Lynn asked her ranch hand to help the man take his tools back to town.
Society has changed tremendously in the last 20 years, and I think that people are less mannerly, a little bit less courteous, and boundaries are blurred more so than in previous generations.
It wasn't long before the man returned, claiming there were tools still at Lynn's ranch.
He came back on the property and vandalized the barn.
I said, all right, let's go to the police. We need to make a formal complaint about George being out here stalking you.
Fearing for her life, Lynn went to court to get a restraining order. Attempting to get an exception to the order, the man explained that his sister lived on the same road as Lynn, and since he rode a bike, that was the shortest and therefore easiest route to get to his sister's house. It wasn't long before the man was using the exception in his restraining order to his advantage.
George manages to find me about once a day.
Lynn joins 8 others from across the nation down at Tac Pro, just outside of Stephenville, Texas. But learning how to stop the threat is only one of the challenges Lynn has to overcome.
I think I have quite a bit of anxiety about handling the gun.
But what does it mean to be a senior taking a trip to learn how to shoot a gun for the first time?
I want to become comfortable around guns.
Often, as we grow older, we do in fact become somewhat stuck in our ways and seek to find shelter in the common practices of our lives. It's not that as we age, it becomes harder for us to learn. It's simply that we find comfort in what we already know.
I don't think age is a factor, but I think your mental approach to what you're going to do is a factor.
I think I am going to speak to many, many women who have had trouble with harassment. It can happen at any age, and I think people tend to think it only happens to maybe women in their 20s, and I think it absolutely is not true.
Coming up, Bill takes the students back to the range and shows them how to use obstacles for protection. But first, Lynn Forsell has much more than her pacifist upbringing to overcome.
One of my concerns is that I'm left-handed and right-eyed.
It's harder, the longer you've been without a gun, it's harder to see where it'll fit in your life.
Are there real limitations to what seniors can do with a firearm? We'll find out. Welcome back. Lynn Forsell has been forced to overcome her upbringing due to a serial stalker. But will her age play a factor?
I have to overcome to learn some of these new things that are ordinary experiences for younger women.
Susan Gaylord Buxton may have something to say about that.
I'm not going to be a victim. My grandkids aren't going to be victims if I have anything to say about it.
Susan is not a student at Tac Pro, but her story rings true to seniors everywhere.
I think everyone needs to defend their family and themselves.
Susan, a 66-year-old grandmother, shot an intruder using a .38 caliber handgun after he had broken into her home to flee police.
It's time that women learn that they do not have to be a victim.
Susan's not alone. Often viewed as weaker targets, criminals go after those they feel are less likely to be able to defend themselves.
Open line! One road!
Help! Though Lynn has been struggling with her grip, sights, and stance over the first few days of the course, her dedication to her personal safety has kept her focused on improving.
One of my concerns is that I'm left-handed and right-eyed. I don't know if that'll make a difference, but it is a concern.
Lynn has had almost no firearms training whatsoever, and so everything is brand new for her.
When I first started, I was more to the right, and I'm getting much more toward the center.
You could see that she was really having to concentrate and think about every single fundamental as she was trying to put those skills into use.
What I need to focus on is repetition.
She had a tendency to look at the target, and that's very common for most shooters.
Front side, front side.
As you bring the handgun up into your line of sight, you have to make yourself shift your point of focus from the target to the front sight. And if you don't have a good sight picture, there's no telling where your rounds are going to go.
Now, in the final days at Tac Pro, Lynn is beginning to show signs of improvement.
Beautiful. Things are couldn't be any more perfect.
I want to become comfortable around guns. I'd like to become proficient in case I ever would need to use one. I don't know if I'll carry a concealed weapon, or I don't know if I'll even buy a gun, but I might, and I might have one at the house.
What you've got to understand is once you put that gun on, you have taken a higher responsibility. You're now not only responsible for yourself and your actions, you're responsible for the situations that are around you.
In today's lesson, Bill's bringing in a few obstacles for the students to shoot from behind.
And I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to shoot around this obstacle and still hit a target.
The point of learning how to shoot from behind obstacles is to train students to quickly get sights on a target, take a shot, and then return to cover. The difference between cover and concealment is cover will stop bullets, whereas concealment will not.
Lynn had the most difficulty learning, but I was really encouraged at the way her shooting improved. Once she got it, then she progressed.
Examples of cover include an engine block, a 6-inch brick wall, or thick steel plating. Examples of concealment include common drywall, often found in homes, bushes, or the door or trunk of your car. You should always use concealment while moving to find cover.
I said, okay. I did a little bit of duck and cover and a little movement and found out about myself that the moving and cover actually worked better for me than standing in one place.
With each shot, many of the students are becoming more and more confident with their firearms. For some of the students, it's been the first time in years that they have felt this empowered.
Right after the barrels, I realized all I'm doing is the same thing I've been trained to do.
I was psyched up. I am ready. I went through things in my mind, like telling myself, you're not going to be a victim anymore.
I thought I did fantastic for having no experience.
It's not that complicated when you know what you're doing. I was so impressed with everybody. Everybody's really come a long way.
It's a good feeling, but is it possible to become too confident with a firearm? Up next, Bill Davison continues to test the students' abilities by incorporating yet another element into their course exercises.
And the goal's got to get harder and harder, otherwise they'll stop learning.
Will this finally be the straw that begins to break the back of their abilities? We'll find out.
Conceal Carry School is brought to you by Cheaper Than Dirt, America's ultimate shooting sports discounter, by Otis, the most advanced gun care system in the world, and by TN Marketing and the Personal Defense Network.
Welcome back. Bill Davison has the students shooting from behind stationary obstacles. The point of learning how to shoot from behind obstacles is to train students to quickly get sights on a target, take a shot, and then return to cover. Many of the students are taking the challenge quite well.
I thought I did fantastic for having no experience.
But as always, Bill's about to add a new element into the mix.
Okay, class, so what we're going to do now, this afternoon, is we're going to have a little man-on-man competition.
We got to do some competitive shooting. We got to shoot against each other. And I've always been an athlete. I've got that competitive spirit, so I was pretty excited to do that.
Well, you've got to keep changing the goal, and the goal's got to get harder and harder, otherwise they'll stop learning. Stand by! Up! If they're looking at the sides and the threat is a slight blur in front of them, they're going to hit it every time.
And I think we all kind of went into day 5 feeling a little bit sure of ourselves.
That was really fun, just going back and forth, trying to stay calm, trying not to shoot too fast, because you get caught up in the excitement of it. You want to beat the person next to you, and your first thought is, well, I have to shoot faster. I have to shoot good, but I have to shoot faster.
A little bit of stress, a little bit of fun, and now I've got hands all over the place, feet all over the place, leaning to one side, not looking at the sides, not pulling the trigger. Everything you've been taught's gone out the window. We can't afford for that to happen. Good stance, good side picture, good trigger control, and the game's over in 6 rounds. They could get more stressful. Let's make it count. Next pair's up. Same thing from the kneeling position. Up! Having a gun concealed on your person is without a doubt one of the greatest gifts, the greatest honors that you can have wherever you live. To know that you have got the right and the capabilities to defend yourself. All right, we'll have one more go each. Pick a partner you want to fight against. Get up and fight.
Even some of the least self-assured students are beginning to show signs of a newly found confidence.
If you can just keep your cool and remember sight picture, trigger control, you do a lot better in the end.
Don't talk until the bullets fly.
Right. My shooting will do my talking.
I think right at this point, Sarah's about to head to the loser's bracket.
I want to say that Mari is not as sweet and innocent as she looks.
Miss, silent but deadly Mari took the gold, which we knew she would. She's been the most consistent shooter the whole week.
We have our champion.
Lynn Forsell has lived her life as a trusting, calm, non-confrontational pacifist. It has served her well in life up until recently. If you find yourself in a situation you can't control, perhaps it's time to learn how to take matters into your own hands, because regardless of what they say, you're never too old to learn a new trick. Next time on Conceal and Carry School, Andy Villa is your all-American man. He's young, successful, and lives in a good neighborhood. So why would he need to arm himself?
The gentleman pulled a knife on myself as well as my dog. Maybe I didn't know how to take care of myself.
Is there really such a thing as a crime-free demographic? And later, Bill puts a handful of students through a real-life reenactment. Will they make it out alive? We'll find out next time on Conceal and Carry School.